Hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome to
GamePunx.
GamePunx. We're in sync today.
Want to do that again?
I just got off a 10-hour shift. No, leave it in. Fuck it.
Leave it and fuck
This
it.
is what they deserve.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to GamePunx. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Ben.
And today is, I guess, our first proper episode back after a mini end of 2020 hiatus.
Yeah, we
have plenty of shit to talk about because
there's news.
There's been a lot of news, and it's just kind of been steadily accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. And there's also just tons of shit that I played.
Yeah,
which has been a good last couple of months for just getting some gameplay time in. So I did a lot of that.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have much to talk about in terms of things that I played, but I do have much to talk about in terms of things that I've watched.
Oh yeah, you have opinions.
Yes.
That you would like to.
Oh god, I forgot we didn't even talk about that shit yet. Jesus Christ, this is gonna be a beefy episode.
We can try and keep it as brief as possible.
Mm-hmm. I'll try, but we'll see. It's what we said for the bonus round. That ended up being 2 hours.
So yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Who knows how this one's gonna go? But I guess I'll start off by talking about a game that I really wasn't expecting to like, becoming one of my favorite things that I've played in the last couple of months, and that's Paper Mario and the Origami King.
I thought you were gonna say Nekopara.
That wouldn't be too off-brand, honestly. So, what can I say about Paper Mario that I haven't already said on this series before? I like Paper Mario 1 for the N64. I think it's a great RPG. It's really fun. I think Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door is probably in definitely in my top 5 sequels of all time, and in my opinion, a far superior game to the original in just about every conceivable way, from taking every good idea of the previous game and elaborating upon it, telling an even better story with better characters, and a more expansive and interesting, diverse world. I think it's a really, really excellent RPG. Super Paper Mario on the Wii, I'll be honest, I didn't spend a lot of time with it, but I also didn't have a big problem with it, because even though it deviated a little bit from the turn-based RPG origins of the first two games, because those are technically, I guess, spiritual sequels to Super Mario RPG on the SNES. These games, on the other hand, that followed Thousand Year Door, they shed the RPG elements, but Super Paper Mario is a pretty good game. Like I said, didn't spend too much time with it. It's more an action RPG with adventure game and platformer elements, and it works really well in that regard. It's kind of like a Paper Mario Metroidvania,
yeah,
from what I understand.
Well, I remember it getting heavily criticized, especially for that, because people wanted another...
They wanted another RPG, yeah. But I think that it's a game that has stood stood the test of time, and the test of what would you call that? Renewed criticism of it. I feel like people look back at it far more fondly now when they see that as the step the series could have taken.
Oh yeah, with new retrospection,
exactly, in retrospect, as opposed to the step the series did take for two games going forward, Paper Mario Sticker Star and Paper Mario Color Splash, which are, I think, I know people who don't even I don't know, RPGs in general, who express disappointment that Paper Mario didn't continue as an RPG series, and cite Sticker Star and Color Splash as good examples of why they're wasting the series potential.
I think those are probably two of the most loathed Mario games in recent times that aren't Mario 2,
I definitely would
right?
say in terms of people openly discussing Mario games negatively, those are the two that I hear come up most often. Because, I mean, say what you want about Mario, whether or not it's kind of, it's oversaturated or whatever, Nintendo generally makes pretty good Mario games.
They're quality games. The level designs are fun.
Yeah, they're always high quality product, regardless of your preferences. You can't argue that they're not polished,
and the difficulty
and,
increase always feels fair in most of the games. Especially the 2D ones. The 3D,
oh yeah, the difficulty spikes are never too intense.
The 3D ones get a little wonky sometimes, but
yeah, that always depends on the way those worlds are crafted. But
yeah,
yeah, generally I'd say Sticker Star and Color Splash top people's list of like disappointing to
I would say
bad
especially
Mario games.
Sticker Star. Like,
Yeah,
I will see a spite.
Sticker Star is a really maligned game, and in my opinion, it deserves to be because I think it's probably one of the most regressive things I've ever played in that it really strips away like the I don't know, the colorful world building and characterization and personality of the other games and reduces it to like this really basic experience that's very very heavily inspired by like the new Super Mario Bros aesthetic and taking like the general aesthetics of those worlds from that series, you know, the jungle with poison water, the mountains with like the tall funny shaped eyes and stuff like that, and like the you know, general grassland world, desert world, water world, you know, versus something like Thousand Year Door, for instance, in which the world is primarily made up of, you know, unique locations that feel like interesting and developed places. Twilight Town, like which we've spoken about before on the podcast in our Halloween episode, I think.
Yeah.
But you know, Twilight Town. There's also Poshley Heights, Glitzville, the floating battle arena that has like a Chinese market feel to it. Like all of these aesthetics are really separate from the general Mario world look, and you know they stand out because of it. It's a welcome deviation from the norm, versus what you get in Sticker Star and Color Splash, which is these very generic worlds that are kind of riffs on these typical Mario ideas that, you know, while mildly more unique in terms of how you navigate them, are not that much more interesting. And that's a really disappointing thing. But the battle system, like what they did to that battle system, making it entirely dependent on expendable items, really hurt that series.
What do you mean? That seems like a great idea.
Collecting stickers in that game is a pain in the fucking ass, and the fights have no strategy. It's all about one-upping your opponent.
Yeah.
You know, and I gotta say, Color Splash didn't spend a lot of time with it. From what I understand, it's a significantly better game than Sticker Star because it, you know, is on the Wii U, so it has the benefit of being, you know, a 1080p HD game that's very pretty to look at. But it also, I don't know, it just seems to kind of carry a lot of the same problems that I have with it from a tonal standpoint. You know, stripping away the unique characters and settings and just kind of keeping with the generic blah blah garbage that they were kind of going with. And another thing that the Paper Mario games did after Super Paper Mario, which I find interesting, that the previous games weren't really doing much with it, but also I never noticed because it wasn't always a big deal to me. Sticker Star and Color Splash, and now Origami King, put a huge emphasis on like the handcrafted papercraft aesthetic of the game as being something that's like literal. Like characters are literally made of paper. It's not just an aesthetic choice.
Yeah.
But they are literally made of paper, and the world is literally made of cardboard and folded kind of real world items and stuff like that all over. And it's an aesthetic that it's very pretty, and it's weird that it actually wasn't elaborated on until those games. But it kind of became the gimmick that drove those games to be anything at all. So the games are so entirely dependent on the gimmick that they don't bother putting any effort into, you know, the writing, which, you know, for most of the Paper Mario games is consistently funny, but through those two, Sticker Star and Color Splash, doesn't have a lot of personality.
Yeah.
All of this is to, you know, say that I think Paper Mario and the Origami King is exactly what Nintendo needed to do with this series. Because first and foremost, it's a good compromise between what the series turned into and what the series could have been with a game like Super Paper Mario. Now, Super Paper Mario, like we said before, not much of an RPG, more of a like an action RPG with, you know, some platforming and Metroidvania elements.
Yeah.
This game is not a platformer. This is definitely an adventure game. And that's the genre I will ascribe to Origami King. First and foremost, Paper Mario and the Origami King is a very good adventure game. You
Get that navigate little adventure series sticker on the box.
Exactly, like Nintendo Adventure Series. Like,
Yeah.
this is exactly what this is. And as an adventure game, it is fulfilling. It's not terribly short, but also, like, not infinitely long like a Zelda game, which I appreciate.
So 20 hours ish.
Yeah, I'd say I've put about 20 hours into the game so far, which
Okay.
I'd say I'm playing it pretty much at the pace that you could expect anybody to play it with,
Yeah.
which is good. I've been playing pretty steadily since I bought the game around the beginning of January, so now I'm going into it. I've pumped about 20 hours into it, and I think I've spent my time well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much at the final boss, so like I've got a fairly good perspective of what the game is. I've collected a lot of the side collectibles before going into the final boss because there's there isn't necessarily a new game plus mode for it. So when you beat the game, they reset you over again.
Yeah, it's just kind of
So
you did
I went and got exactly. I went and got all the collectibles before I went to the final boss. So I've seen pretty much everything the game has to offer.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm really satisfied with what they've done. So in place of the really flaccid battle system that they had for Sticker Star and Color Splash, which basically turned the battles into meaningless, padding effectively.
Yeah.
Which is why those games are really short.
Time consumption.
Exactly.
Nothing.
The battles feel like padding because there's no reward for completing battles because there's no experience points in those games because there's no RPG mechanics. This game decides, okay, well, if we're not going to have an RPG battle system, we will have a battle system that's instead puzzle-based. And so now, the way that the battles work in Paper Mario and the Origami King is that you're on like a series of, I think it's 4, you're standing in the middle of a series of 4 concentric rings. The rings are divided into spaces and enemies occupy some of these spaces, and you have to line enemies up in particular shapes in order to hit them with attacks that have the range that fits with that shape. Okay. So it's a puzzle game where you're organizing enemies on the field. You have a limited amount of time to do it, and you can expend coins to either have the game assist you in solving the puzzle or give you more time to solve the puzzle, which is a nice thing for people who have difficulty with puzzles. Yeah. It's nice that it's there right in the battle system, and if you press that button, you'll get a little bit of assistance. But if you just want to do it on your own, it's cool too. There's also tons of items which buff up the amount of time you can take, or up your HP and stuff like that. So there are ways to build a version of this game that accommodates whatever difficulty the player deems necessary for themselves. So that's really, really cool. It's a good way of mitigating the difficulty in the game to begin with. But battles are kind of fought in this series of 4 concentric rings. You're lining enemies up to fit these certain spaces on the board so that you can hit them with your weapons and stuff like that in the correct way. And then when you switch over to boss battles, Mario is outside of the rings and the boss is in the center. So they switch up kind of how the battles work. And instead of Mario needing to line up enemies, he has to line the panels up into a walkable path for him to reach the boss in order to execute a move, to use an item, whatever it is you need to do, or to activate a symbol, because there are magic circle symbols that you collect throughout the game that you kind of accumulate powers for them that allow you to do screen clearing attacks, or in the overworld interact with the overworld in a certain way. 4 kinds of it are elemental magic, and one other kind is just kind of a physical movement where you stretch out your arms like these big accordions. Yeah, which is really cool, and manipulate the overworld by tearing stuff away or what have you. But it's really, really interesting how they keep the same system in place but place you on the other side, as opposed to just having you line the boss up in a weird way. Instead, you're lining up the path for you to reach the boss, and it's quite difficult actually. It's very challenging, and like I said, it's good they have those difficulty modifiers in the game to make it a little easier, because I find it kind of, especially with the way that I play puzzle games and stuff, I like to take my time, and I don't like rushing. I always love playing free mode in Tetris because I'm not being rushed. I'm just playing the game at my own pace. In Puyo Puyo as well, if I'm playing Puyo Puyo, I like to play it at my own pace and not be timed. Or Cross Sneak, when I'm playing Cross Sneak, I play the mode where you can set the amount of time you want to play If I know I want to play 15 minutes, I just set the clock for 15 and go.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting seeing how I, as a puzzle gamer, navigate a timed puzzle-based battle system. I've been having trouble with it, though I understand other people find it a little easier, so there you go. But I appreciate it nonetheless that they've really made an effort in making like these battles work similarly to an RPG battle system, but not actually, so they can still give you a little bit of a taste of what the Paper Mario games used to be as turn-based RPGs, but also evolving it to suit a more general audience who might not be interested in playing turn-based RPGs because, hey, that's a lot of people, And Nintendo, obviously, it's in their MO to make games that are accessible to different groups of gamers or general gamers, people who are not hardcores but definitely play, Mario games and Zelda games. I feel like the dungeons in this game feel very similar to Zelda dungeons in that there's usually, one or two puzzle mechanics that are recurring throughout the whole thing that you just kind of use to navigate and change the space and layout of the dungeon.
Yeah, and then everything comes back at the end temple.
Yeah,
type
exactly.
Thing. Yeah.
They're very, very much Zelda dungeons. Yeah. And, they're a little easier than your typical Zelda dungeon. They're not as beefy because they don't make up a huge portion of the game. A large portion of the game is actually navigating the overworld, which is also a little bit dungeon-y in how it's designed. But that's, like I said, that's why this game feels a lot like an adventure game, like a Zelda game, for instance. It's really fun. Another thing that I appreciate about the game is that one of the criticisms we were talking about before, just the generic world designs, boom, gone. Everything feels really cool and unique now. The first world in the game, Overlook Mountain, is like, it takes you a couple of different stages to get there, but the world is organized in like a fully open world kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can move between these different areas that are, they're gated off from one another by different areas, but like everything is accessible just by traveling through the world and using the different routes the game offers you, which is cool. Yeah. There's a fast travel pipe system like in all the other Paper Mario games that leads you from the hub area of the game, Toad Town, to the different parts of the world. But everything is reached with the exception of the final area pretty naturally. It's just a natural progression of things. There's there is backtracking, which I appreciate too, because it helps you go back and uncover parts of these levels that you wouldn't have had access to before because you didn't have a particular power. But that's all really, really interesting. But yeah, so Overlook Mountain is like this large hill that's kind of populated by like picnickers and vacationers and people out doing like leisurely sporting activities. And then there's also like right underneath this Overlook Mountain, effectively like a park, there's like a giant temple, like a Zelda temple, okay. But it's done up like a tourist trap, which is really funny. So it's got like a shitty museum that you walk through with like bad animatronics, like reading boring kind of card information at you as you consistently put coins into each machine to hear more of this stuff. So it's siphoning money away from you. It's pretty funny. But there's also like a whole world that's just organized around a Japanese theme park, like a theme park based on a Japanese castle town.
Okay.
And you go into like a thing called the Ninja Attraction, and it's like a classic haunted house style amusement park attraction, but it's like a ninja house, and you have to uncover all the ninjas in the ninja house by manipulating everything. So it's really, really fun, and it feels kind of goofy and interesting. And there's all these,
pretty neat.
Samurai ninja takes on different Mario enemies. Another area that I thought was really actually awe-inspiringly beautiful, and just the way it was designed and presented, was the Scorching Sandpaper Desert. It's a desert that's it's pretty vast. It's made up of about 6 different areas.
Okay.
And you navigate it, because it's so big, you navigate it by car. It's like a little boot with wheels that you drive around in, called a boot car, obviously. And it's just this vast desert, and the sand is made from visibly sandpaper, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And it has this nice handcrafted aesthetic, and that whole area, the entire way that you go about doing it is going to these different temples and areas in different parts of the desert, and aligning these statues to all look in a particular direction to lift this giant kind of step pyramid out of the sand, which is really, really cool. So it feels, like I said, very Zelda-esque almost, and revealing the dungeon by doing a series of mini challenges and dungeons before that, and navigating this large open space.
Sounds
but
like
there's
quite
this,
the set piece.
It's pretty good, and there's this cool little, another cool little, like, I guess, like, world building thing they do where there's a city in the middle of this desert that you go to for the first time, and it's called Sniff City, but you can see it used to be Shroom City, but all of the toads have mysteriously disappeared, and it's been taken over by Sniffits, who are like those little shy guys, but they have a large open mouth that shoots bullets.
Okay.
So it's been taken over entirely by Sniffits, and they've repurposed what was obviously like a Vegas meets Arabian Nights looking city into like a shitty tourist trap, which is really, really funny. So there's just kind of a lot of humor in the world building like that, and then when you complete the dungeon of the Sandpaper Desert, you find all the toads that have gone missing, and they go back, and now they just have to live with the fact that the city that they were living in before is now like 50% occupied by like Sniffits. And so there's like a guy who when you break into his house earlier in the game to go and see what's in there, he's like jumping on the bed.
Yeah.
And then you go back in after, and the Sniffit who is jumping on the bed sitting in the chair, and he's like, what, when's my turn gonna happen? And there's a toad jumping on the bed now. So just kind of this fun stuff like that is what keeps these worlds interesting, and they make them feel a little more vibrant and alive than the shit in Sticker Star and Color Splash, which is just so painfully generic.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, this desert, it wasn't just pyramids and the twangy, like, generic Middle Eastern riff music. It was like, oh, this is a large, vast desert, and you can see they're taking inspiration from various desert cultures. There's a bit of the American Southwest in there. There's a bit of the Sahara Desert. There's a little bit of, like, the Mexican Altiplano. Like, there's a little bit of everything there that you get, and I think, I appreciate that they're combining these aesthetics as opposed to just kind of making a generic Mario desert. Now it's a desert with a bit of a different flavor. So, I don't know. I think Origami King is a really fulfilling experience, and if there was anybody that was hesitant to try it because they were not big fans of the previous Paper Mario games, which, that's definitely me. I fit into that category of people too. Give it a try. It's really, really great. I enjoy the writing. The characters have a lot of personality, even though
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but how comparable is it to Thousand Year Door? Because I think that is the gold standard for me.
It's not. It's honestly such a different kind of game.
Yeah,
that I honestly can't compare them, which I think is good, because I think the last thing Nintendo wants is for people to draw comparisons between the two, because inevitably it will happen anyway.
Yeah.
So they've made a concerted effort to make it feel like a completely different genre.
I just wish Nintendo would stop
really
trying to get away from Thousand Year Door.
Well, I think that's because once the series was led creatively by a team at Nintendo and not entirely defined by the people at Intelligent Systems.
Yeah.
Like the other two were. Miyamoto was like, well, he doesn't like story games. He doesn't like games with stories.
He wants game with fun.
He likes games with fun and inventive gameplay mechanics, which is like, it makes sense because coming from the era that he was a designer primarily throughout, because even by the time he was on like projects like Mario 64, he was a little higher than just a lead designer or director.
Yeah.
He was a producer.
Yeah.
So he was moving up in the Mario, and that's by the time games had the tech to actually convey a kind of narrative.
He was moving up in Mario as fast as Sonic was moving down.
Pretty much, exactly. That's a actually really good way of putting it. So
I made myself sad.
But so it makes sense, like that's his ethos as a creator, and I understand where it comes from, because for the most of the time that he was designing games, you couldn't really use games to tell much of a story, and you could squeeze as much narrative as he could from like these really thin gameplay mechanics and resources that were allowed for you to input text into the game, but it's not like you could tell a story. So his priority as a designer then became how do I make this game fun. And I think that ethos is why Mario is probably still going as long as it has gone.
Yeah.
Because they're consistently fun games and nobody gives a shit what the story of a Mario game is.
Yeah.
But I also
the Mario
don't
lore
mind when a
isn't
Mario
the
game
deepest.
has a story. And I feel like the few times Mario mainline games have tried to do a story, they've been pretty bad. Like, I don't really think Super Mario Sunshine is necessarily a good story.
I don't think Odyssey's strength is in its story.
No, exactly. And Odyssey, rightfully so, they toned down the story from the previous 3D Mario games, like Sunshine, because it is kind of a return to form to that kind of 3D Mario.
Well, I mean, you could argue Galaxy.
Well, but Galaxy
I don't remember
plays
Galaxy
so
having
to me.
a story at all.
Galaxy has storybook segments that are entirely optional.
Okay.
Which tell you the story of Rosalina. And it's a good little children's picture book of a story. But that's what it is. It's not this intensely developed world or anything like that. So,
well, I mean,
that
Mario
was kind
64
of what people
was
like about...
like, Peach has been kidnapped by Bowser. And then you beat the game, and it's like, thank you so much for rescuing me. And that's the story.
Yeah.
That's the story. Look, it's Yoshi.
Whatever.
He's on top of the castle. He was there the whole time.
Hey, L is real. L is real.
L is real. Oh, God.
L is real.
I quit the podcast.
But that shit is, that's the Mario series' MO. And that's really why I think people liked Paper Mario for a long time, is because they could tell stories in that world. And the stories they told were good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Super Paper Mario as well actually has a really good story.
And then Miyamoto said, no.
Yeah, no more of that. Don't make it an RPG. Okay. It makes it like a good action adventure game. Okay, but don't make it a game with a story. Yeah. Sticker star.
That doesn't Thousand Year Door open on like Princess Peach looking at like some gallows?
Yeah, no, there
and you're like, whoa,
gallows right in the middle of Rogue Port at the beginning. I remember, I think, was it Wooly who was playing that? And he was like, "Is that a noose?"
Yeah, is that a fucking noose?
Is that a noose? So yeah, no, that's kind of the energy that game
Tone
has.
established.
Like it's a goofy, fun game with a little bit of darkness under the covers,
which is refreshing for
there's
Nintendo.
A bit of darkness to Origami King, in that like the lead villain King Ollie has like folded the Mushroom Kingdom people into like creepy zombified origami things.
Yeah, that's cool.
They're kind of creepy and uncanny and weird. And they just kind of have wreaked havoc across the land and folded people up. And,
do you think that was that team working on that? And like they're like, all right, Miyamoto's not looking. Quick, get there, put it in.
Make it uncanny.
Don't worry. Don't show him that part though. Don't show him.
Like
and he comes over and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Is so funny because
what are you
Mario
doing?
and Luigi going to Peach's castle to do a party like it's Mario 64 or something, and then in the part where you would expect Princess Peach to come out and greet them, this creepy, stiff origami Princess Peach waddles out from the door, and there's this ominous music. And she's just like, will you crease your folds and become one with me in this origami form? And we're like,
God.
Oh shit! That's a little.
Is this the Society of Mario games?
It's pretty funny. It's I really do like the take that they go with the origami creatures being kind of otherworldly and alien to these flat paper creations. There's also these huge kind of scary versions of regular Mario enemies called paper machos, who are like made out of paper mache, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of these two-dimensional characters against these three-dimensional characters.
It sounds like they just kind of had fun with it, right? They
exactly.
Were like,
they had a lot of fun
paper world. Let's
developing
just fuck
this
around.
premise and making the world feel like it's really this paper-crafted place. There's a mechanic in the game where you have a bag of magic confetti that you use to repair holes in the world, and the holes in the world are literally like there's a hole cut into this cardboard ground, and underneath you can see like the wire rigging that's making this paper mache cardboard floor stay up, which is really, really funny.
That's pretty good.
So it's little touches like that, little aesthetic touches that make this feel so much like the Sticker Star and Color Splash games, but with like gameplay that I enjoy.
Yeah,
and
you saying "Hole in the World"
is pretty.
You saying "Hole in the World" just made me think of BioShock Infinite, and I was like, oh.
It's really funny in that sense. Like there's jokes where you hear like, oh, I'm stuck in a void between existences, and what it is it's like Luigi is trapped behind some wallpaper, but because he's paper flat, he might as well have just been whisked into flatland and become like a completely like a being of pure consciousness and no physical form. So it's pretty funny.
Paper Mario and the Origami King, written by David Lynch.
Yeah, the writing in this game is super on point, and I believe it's the same people who have been localizing the Paper Mario games since the first game.
Yeah.
So, even though I didn't really love Sticker Star or Color Splash, I think those games are funny still.
Yeah, there's some wits.
Yeah.
I think that's the only redeemable.
I
think that's the only redeemable thing about Sticker Star is like there's some funny jokes in there,
and they're pretty funny when they do them. They are funny. Similarly, there's a lot of good-natured humor in this game, with a little bit of some crass, silly, and sometimes like, oopsie, how'd that get into an Nintendo game?
Don't show this to Miyamoto.
So, it's Miyamoto's not looking. Put in a one dirty joke, but it's pretty funny, and I think they did a good job localizing the game and making it, making the quirky aesthetics suit the quirky writing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a really good experience. Paper Mario and the Origami King, I'm very pleased with what I've been playing so far. And pretty much beaten the game at this point, so it's just a matter of beating that final boss, which I'm having a bit of trouble with. So why I haven't beaten him yet. I've had to refight him a couple times. It's pretty hard. But it's nice. It's also nice to play a Paper Mario game that's difficult.
Oh, God. Yep.
And not entirely cheesed by expendable items. That's pretty great. I've really been enjoying my time with that. Apart from that, I've been playing a little bit of Final Fantasy IX. It's getting back into it. I'm only about 8 hours into the game, so I really haven't been getting that far in that story.
You only have 191 more hours to go.
Exactly. So I'm enjoying my time in there because I'm getting to listen to... Well, firstly, that game has a great soundtrack.
Well, but that's
Uematsu's last soundtrack for Final Fantasy that he entirely composed.
Exactly.
So he just and like following that, he would never make a soundtrack that long again. So he totally just went hard, and it's like a lot of interesting medieval instrumentation and these different kinds of medieval modes of music as well, like these chords that sound very medieval and these flutes and lutes and stringed instruments and stuff like that, bazookies and whatever.
Yeah, the lutes are prominent as fuck.
It's a very nice sounding game. Lots of beautiful woodwind instruments.
Yeah, like I don't remember playing 9, but I know that I've listened to the soundtrack enough to be like,
it's a really great soundtrack. It's very rich and very interesting for a Final Fantasy game, which I don't think has ever been terribly defined by its medieval sounding music. I mean, Uematsu is very much inspired by like Canterbury English progressive rock and like electronic music like Kraftwerk. Like those are his two biggest inspirations, are bands like King Crimson and Yes, like that scene of, or like very early Genesis with like their kind of slightly medieval time signatures and stuff like that. Like all of that stuff
prog
is like
rock
that's
shit.
Prog, like Canterbury prog is so built into his sound, and it's something that he often plays around with. But there's within this game there's a lot more of focus on the medieval soundingness of those modes by using instruments that sound very medieval, so it makes the game feel a lot more old school and old fashioned in terms of its setting than something like Final Fantasy VIII, which has an amazing soundtrack, and I think, in my opinion, one of the top 3 in the series soundtracks, but also kind of doesn't have a sonic identity necessarily. Like there's a jazz in there, there's this organ heavy prog metal, there's like just general kind of electronic and dance music in there too, like with Laguna's battle theme, which just kind of sounds like a house song, so there's like a lot of modern influence to that soundtrack, and even to stuff like Final Fantasy VII, which sounds very industrial and is full of these industrial music stings, and it's very MIDI synthy, right?
Yeah.
But with like those heavy metal kind of organ battle themes as well. But yeah, 9 has a great soundtrack, so I'm enjoying my time in 9. I'm just at the outer continent, so it's pretty much the second part of the game, and I'm enjoying my time with it. I've been trying to get Quina, who's the Blue Mage character in the game, to actually learn their Blue Mage abilities, because they have to eat enemies to steal their magic, and that's how. I don't know
That's
if you're
pretty
familiar
fucked
with,
up.
I don't know if you're familiar with how Blue Mage blue mage powers work in Final Fantasy, but for people who don't know, a blue mage in Final Fantasy is a character who basically learns magic like a black mage or white mage, and they can learn healing magic and defensive magic, but all of these abilities are stolen from enemies using a variety of different commands or means of learning those abilities. So whether or not it's defeating an enemy in battle using a certain move that grants you their ability, like in 9 where you use Quina's I think it's called like the eat command, and you just eat the enemy. If they're weak enough, you absorb their essence and gain one of their attacks. And in other games, for instance, like in Final Fantasy V, I think you have to defeat the enemy in battle using the enemy has to attack the blue mage, and the blue mage has to fight them back, or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It's strange. That's where that mechanic was introduced. But there was another class in that game called the Beastmaster, which allowed you to like manipulate enemy behavior.
Okay, so kind of like Ninja and Swordmaster in Bravely Default.
Exactly, where like when working in tandem, you
that
are able to accumulate all of the abilities for the blue mage.
That fucking combo was ridiculous.
Exactly. So it's like, you could make a blue mage with Beastmaster abilities, or you could have a Beastmaster in the party along with a blue mage in the party, and you could get the blue mage to learn abilities like that. But yeah, blue magic is magic learned from enemies, and Quina is the blue mage in Final Fantasy IX. And yeah, I really, really like I like playing blue mages because they're difficult characters, and Quina is the first character in the series, I think, to be like a requisite blue mage. Like, you are entirely required by the game to use Quina at certain points in the game, like is just a member of the party. So you are forced to learn how the blue mage job class works.
Okay.
As opposed to Final Fantasy VIII, where Quistis is technically a blue mage, but blue magic in 8 doesn't work the same way because blue magic is her limit break instead of her regular set of moves. So she's more like a generalist, with like most of the characters in the game are generalists because their ability trees are entirely customizable based on the junction system of that game, where you just junction different abilities from assigned creatures to the character, and that's how you build them into the build that you want. The creatures basically have materia, and you attach the materia associated with that creature to the character to build their list of battle commands. But Quistis, on the other hand, she has blue magic, but it's her limit break. So what happens is when you defeat particular enemies in the game, they give you an item, and you just have Quistis use that consumable item, and it gives her a new blue magic ability. So Quina is really the first blue mage in the whole Final Fantasy series that you are required by the game to use. And because of that, it's interesting to see how the game kind of teaches you to use their mechanics. So fun game, and I'm really enjoying my time with it so far. I really like also the dungeon design in the game is unique. I just did a dungeon where you're crawling through like a fossil cavern with like fossils kind of all through the walls. And the way you navigate the cavern is you crawl on the back of a big bug, and the bug scuttles along like these vines that are kind of hanging from the ceiling, and they take you to different parts of the cave. And you have to change the routes that the bugs navigate by spraying water down certain pathways so that the bug doesn't go down that path, and reducing the water flow in other pathways so the bug goes down that path. It's pretty fun. I think it was a really unique little dungeon. It wasn't terribly long. It had a nice aesthetic. 9 is a really good Final Fantasy game. For those who haven't played it, it's a little slow, but thankfully you can speed the game up with like all the recent releases. Like, they give you the ability to just make the game run at like double, triple, quadruple speed. So you can just play the game really quickly and, have a much easier time, because otherwise that game is like a bit of a chug in terms of its length. Like, I think if you play regular Final Fantasy IX and you're not modding it with like these things that cut down on the time that it takes for shit to load, it probably will take you like, I don't know, it's close to a 90 to 120 hour RPG. You easily cut down like 40 hours if you speed that game up. So yeah, because you don't have to play it on a slow as fuck PS1 anymore, and there exist both mods and in-game things you can do to just speed the game flow up a little more. It's a worthwhile game to try out. If it was only still available on PS1, I honestly don't know if I could recommend it to a modern gamer because of how fucking slow it is. But now that it's easier to play at fast speed, play Final Fantasy IX. is good shit. I'll save the other game I wanted to talk about, I think, for another episode, because I haven't even really fully gotten the most out of it yet, but I've been playing Freedom Planet and I'm really liking it. But I have things to say about the game, but I'd rather play more of it first before I really
well, I mean,
so
that's where I'm at with
that
Yakuza 7.
Yeah, too, exactly.
Right? Where you're just kind of like,
yeah, you're in the shit with it, so it's like I'm deep in figuring out how I feel about this. So yeah, exactly. Similarly with Freedom Planet, don't quite know how I feel about it yet. Apart from I think it's a very pretty game that I have fun playing, but I have some thoughts, myriad thoughts that I will discuss on a later episode. So let's talk about the big viewing elephant in the room, or what would you call that? The looming horror that is your viewing experiences of some very, very controversial films.
Yeah. So I watched Twin Peaks and it sucked. No. I did watch Twin Peaks, so we'll get into that later. It's very good. I don't. You know what? We're not even going to talk about Twin Peaks this episode because I am one episode away from finishing season 1, and I would rather just do a wrap up of season 1.
Sounds good.
Instead of just being like, oh, this is where I'm at, and I have 45 minutes to go, so I don't know what's going to happen.
So let's peel back the scab and salt the wound.
All right. So as everyone knows,
you're the number one Star Wars fan in the whole world. There's
number
no bigger
one
Star Wars fan than you.
No, I did not.
not a single one.
I did not get threatened over Twitter for my opinions of Star Wars. I did not get into a day-long shit fest thread explaining that I thought that John Boyega got robbed a little bit, and for some reason that was the only issue I had with the movie.
Yeah.
Twitter's a fucking
Twitter is a
nightmare to post opinions, and then people will be like, well, that's just your opinion. It's like, yeah, it's my own personal Twitter. What the fuck did you expect?
I always have to laugh at people who expressly use Twitter as a means of kind of
like their college citation.
Yeah, I have to laugh because it's like the best thing about Twitter, and something that I do often, and a tool I do often employ, is that I can curate what I see and what I don't see. If I see a comment I don't like, I can literally just block that user or mute them, so I never have to see anything they post ever again. Additionally, you can make certain words on the website muted, so you never have to see those things with that word in them ever mentioned again.
Yeah,
and see, I don't ever see any Kanye news ever on my feed anymore, and it's very good.
I think that's where we're on polar opposites of like type of people who use Twitter. Because you're like, I want to filter this shit out, and I'm like, how do I make this number one on my feed? How do I make this stupid shit? I want to piss people off. I want to get into Twitter fights. I want someone to threaten to shoot me over a Lord of the Ring joke.
I think it's because you like getting into trouble.
I do. It's the best.
You have a bit of an appetite for destruction. I think.
Just a little bit. It's not even destruction. I just like being like, no, but this is what I think. You're gonna tell me that I don't think what I think?
Well, there's a lot of people that are not big fans of unmitigated opinions on Twitter.
Yeah, well, my opinions are unmitigated.
At the same time, their opinions, you don't have to agree with them. You don't even necessarily have to see them if you don't want to.
We don't have to get into a 2-day-long discussion about what feminism is.
Oh, crap. No,
but whatever, we're talking about Star Wars.
But yeah, which, I mean, technically probably sounds like it could be a Star Wars adjacent conversation, knowing how toxic that discussion has become over the period of the last 5 years. Holy shit. It's Star Wars went from like a thing that was fun to like to a thing that is actively painful to engage with in any kind of meaningful way.
Kind of meaningful way, because you have adult man piss babies who are like, I can't be upset about anything that Star Wars does because I've made Star Wars my entire personality. Therefore, anything bad about Star Wars is bad about me.
And moreover, a thing that's really funny is that you have the Star Wars man babies who are like that, and then you have the Star Wars man babies who are basically the complete opposite, who are like, there's not even a single thing about Star Wars that's good.
Yeah, there's not any good in Star Wars.
The only good thing about Star Wars was the things that I liked about Star Wars when I was fucking 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what kids who are 8 years old now like about Star Wars, or, kids who grew up during the prequels learned to like about Star Wars or whatever. It's just my boomer-ass Star Wars opinions that fucking matter.
Yeah.
And anything less than that is grounds for me to fucking dox you or some shit. So it's like the spectrum of like fandom being the most toxic negative side of fandom and the most toxic positive side of fandom.
Yeah.
Where nobody can meaningfully engage in criticism of Star Wars without courting two of the most volatile online parties you could possibly engage with.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my god, it makes talking about Star Wars and talking about liking Star Wars feel like, I don't know, like you are like you are fucking asking for trouble.
I mean, it's like being like, oh, are you voting for Trump or Biden? And it's like, I don't really like either of them, but there's like, and it's like, oh, so you're Trump then? It's like, no. And it's like, so you're Biden then? You're like, no. No,
exactly. There's no nuance to any discussion.
Yeah, it's just like you either love Star Wars or you fucking hate it, and you're the worst person ever, or you like it and you're the worst person ever. My entire
approach to Star Wars right now, just as somebody who really does deeply love and care about Star Wars, but deeply hate everything about its fandom, is to just be kind of like, oh yeah, Star Wars sucks.
Yeah, well, I mean, this kind of ties, like, this discussion's going to kind of tie into the news, because that Ubisoft Star Wars game is happening, and I saw that and went, ugh, I don't care. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen anything from it, so I don't care. This is probably going to be shit, because it's Ubisoft.
I don't trust Ubisoft to make a good Star Wars game.
Everyone's like, but it's not EA. It's not EA. And it's like, but it's Ubisoft. That's EA's little brother.
And EA at least had Respawn make their last significantly good Star Wars single game.
And like that was all right. At worst, it kind of buggy, but
which is like, I'd rather kind of buggy be a problem with the game than flawed fundamentally.
Or totally incomplete.
Fundamentally broken and incomplete, like
Cyberpunk.
Large AAA games. Yeah.
Sorry.
That was a funny cough. Kind of sounded like you said Cyberpunk.
Oh no, totally. I refuse to talk about Cyberpunk ever.
I think the internet has had that conversation already. We know where everybody stands in that game now.
Yeah, that game should have came out as early access at best.
And just to say once again, because I was on this shit before everybody else, I told you so.
Yeah, but when they delayed when FF7 was a week away, I was like, oh, this is a bad look.
Oh boy,
this does not look good.
That was the beginning of the end, I think, for the people who were holding on to hope for.
Yeah, because I was like, this is some, especially, well, maybe not everyone, because I had people like one of the guys I work at the bike shop with was very adamant and was like, oh, my roommate got Cyberpunk for his birthday. I'm so stoked to get it, and I was like, I don't know, man. I got a really bad feeling about this game.
I have to laugh away from the mic or I'm gonna peek.
Yeah. And I was like, I really don't know, dude. I have a fucking horrible feeling about this game. He's like, no, it looks so sick. And like now every time he comes into work, he's just like, man, I fucking And I'm like, yeah, I told you. You should trust me. I've been doing this for a minute.
Oh boy, that's so funny. I can't even feel bad for y'all. Y'all just didn't see the signs.
Yeah.
You ignored them before it was too late.
And apparently it's an all right game, despite the horrible bugs. Like everyone I know who likes the game is like, I can't recommend the game. Obviously, what the fuck?
I'll be honest. Even like the few things people are saying good about it, to me, sound like buyer's remorse manifesting as justifications for your purchase.
I don't know. Sphere Hunter is very into the game and likes it a lot, but she's also like, don't buy it.
Okay.
Like, don't buy it.
I guess that's the right way to
yeah, it's just like, I'm really enjoying my experience with this game, despite the bugs and weirdness, but like, don't just give it a year.
Yeah. I find it so funny too that like people weren't prepared, I think, because I think a lot of people thought they were getting The Witcher but Cyberpunk, and what they eventually that's really
Fallout 76.
What they got was like I want to say the media firestorm of Fallout 76 times 100 attached to a game that plays like Vampire the Masquerade but worse. Like,
oh
that's
god, that's such a good, yeah.
That's kind of what they got. They got the toxic, shitty corporate bullshit that ruined Fallout 76 on a fundamental level, but attached to a game that plays indie, like weird, a game that's broken, 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
so weird. Oh my god.
It's so funny to me that that's what happened. Anyway,
Star Wars.
We're avoiding the Star Wars conversation, I think. But it has to be said.
I'm not going to dwindle on Force Awakens, because Force Awakens was long enough ago, and I think we talked about it once.
I'm pretty sure we both are of the opinion that it's
pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
They paid fucking what's his face who wrote New Hope, and were like, "Can you write the script again?" And he was like, "Yeah,
okay.
I can make the same movie. You sure? Like, just change it a bit, but yeah, go for it."
It's pretty good. I mean, it's what I like the most about it is because Star Wars is, a series that is built around recurring elements and recurring narrative threads and stuff like that, that it does feel like a good echo of those previous movies. But it also does the thing where it's kind of shedding the identity of the prequels just enough. Yeah. Just enough for the people who like the prequels to not feel alienated, but invite back in the fans who really did not like the prequels and jumped off.
I mean, the thing, too, that I like about Force Awakens is that it's a really good fucking starting point for kids who were born...
Absolutely.
Whenever, right? Like...
It's interesting
totally
how it works,
fine.
Too, because there's all these people in the movie who talk... these characters who talk reverently about people like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, it's like these mystical...
And they sound exactly like people reminiscing about... the characters.
Yeah.
The way that old
and like I think
movies.
a really good way to go about it would be like showing a child like say Force Awakens and then being like, you want to see the movies that came before this, and they're like, oh,
yeah, hell
what?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, which is kind of what I plan to do with my daughter. We'll see how that goes, but like,
who knows?
Yeah. But then Rian Johnson just came and was like.
Rian Johnson wanted to make a divisive movie, I think.
Rian Johnson wanted to subvert expectation with every single decision every character made.
I think what he wanted to do was very necessary, which is take the series somewhere risky. Do something risky with the stories, because I think a lot of the story of Force Awakens, like a lot of that story, like we said, it feels very recursive and it's intentional, but I think the whole trick of that movie was to effectively invite the audience back into this universe with something familiar, but then for the next movie to throw a curveball their way.
Yeah, well,
which is why they choose a filmmaker like Johnson to do it, because Rian Johnson, in my opinion, is like the master of writing movies that entirely subvert your expectation of what they can do. Yeah. Like if you watch a movie like Knives Out, for instance.
Knives Out was a fucking beautiful masterpiece.
It's a phenomenal.
I think we talked about
movie.
It actually.
Yeah.
Recently,
it's so excellent for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
But one of the things it's best known for doing is taking the concept of,
you think you know what's going on
style whodunit murder mystery.
Yeah, you fucked up.
And completely reversing how a story like that is told, and that you are pretty much know from minute one who the person who did everything was.
Yes.
You know who did it, but it's not who did it but it's not really who did it that matters.
You assume you know who did it, but you were still wrong.
Yeah. And it's
technically
it's also not entirely about who did it.
Well, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
No, you do know who did it from the murder. You know immediately who did it. But then so many twists happen that you're like, "Oh my god, it wasn't
it wasn't super clear cut."
Yeah, and then it was like, "Oh no. Whoa. Oh shit. Okay, cool." If you haven't seen Knives Out,
it's a very postmodern movie, and
go watch Knives Out.
It's very
amazing.
cool. But yeah, his idea for Last Jedi is to make a postmodern Star Wars movie that examines the other movies a little more critically and kind of tells a story within the framework they set up that is critical of the way those other movies, kind of the way those other stories are told, that kind of maybe shine a light on some of the things that happened in it that maybe maybe the fact that so much of the stuff is recurring is a problem.
I mean, I think what Rian Johnson wanted to do was that line from, I think it's KOTOR 2, where it's like, you want to kill the Sith? Don't you realize that's just cultural suicide?
I don't know if I necessarily say it's that. It's more like...
Well, no, I mean, that's a line like straight up from KOTOR 2.
No, I know. But I feel like I don't know if that's the sentiment I ascribe.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily to that extreme, but what he was going for was, hey, there's this gray area of the Force. But he just he just kind of overdid Luke being old and tired. Because I do believe Luke would have been old and tired, but him tossing the lightsaber and like, it's just...
I feel like a lot of what the movie is trying to do is subvert your expectations about the sort of person Luke Skywalker turned out.
And I'm not saying I hated The Last Jedi. I'm saying that there's a lot of problems that I have with The Last Jedi. That like I think that the movie should have ended when Kylo Ren extends his hand to Rey and is like, join me. And then you could go to credits. And that
would have been a fucking ballsy move.
That is an amazing cliffhanger. It would have gotten everyone talking, and you know how many people would have gone to go see fucking the Skywalker Rise or whatever? Everyone. Literally, I would have been so fucking stoked. But the movie goes on for like 30 minutes after that, and it just kind of like deflates, I feel.
I gotta say, I do like that last 30 minutes of the movie in particular, though, because I think... The set piece is really excellent. Like I like the idea of a last stand on a last stand and using kind of these, I don't know, old out of service and out of repair like technology to fight back a group of people that are just at the most technologically advanced other side of that. Like I like because to me that brings it back to like the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War aesthetic that inspired the original Star Wars movies, which is a group of basically guerrilla fighters with not a lot of resources, fighting against like an imperialistic and fully advanced military.
Yeah, I mean, my main problem with that last scene was like, hey, look, it's Hoth, but it's a salt planet, so it's not Hoth, and you're like, ugh.
Oh, it did make for some good visuals though when the those things are kind of skimming across.
Like the red thing is a really cool visual, but like I was so like, oh god, you didn't have to. I kind of see what you mean though by the movie
deflating. I think the biggest problem with The Last Jedi is its pacing. I think the pacing of the movie is there's an entire there's literally here's the thing, would that plot have felt as deflating if there hadn't been a whole other B plot that began and concluded before that final 30 minutes, Well,
I mean, like I said, it should have ended. It should have ended when fucking Kylo Ren extends his hand to Rey, which is at that exact mark when it.
What I'm saying, I guess, is if they cut out that part of the story where Finn goes out on his own mission with Rose,
but he doesn't. That's the other thing, though. Nothing he does mattered.
That's what I'm saying. So if they cut that part out and instead incorporate, Finn's narrative, a lot more closely into the whole mutiny narrative, which I really like. I like the idea of there being a divide in the resistance between the methods used to combat the First Order, and what they could do is instead of sending Finn off, have Finn participate in that narrative and add his perspective to it, because he is somebody who previously was afraid to challenge orders until he made a stand against the people that he was taking orders from.
Yeah.
So
is this the one where Carrie Fisher gets blown out of the fucking hole and then like forces her way back to the ship?
No, well, not necessarily that. I'm talking more so about the aftermath
but
of that.
is this the one? Because I'm getting them kind of. I watched them all in like one sitting, right?
Yes, that's the movie.
Okay, yes, so it's this one. I
feel like that whole part of the movie where there's this ideological conflict taking place between Admiral Holdo, who's Poe's superior officer.
Yeah.
And Poe, who has his own idea about how the Resistance should be combating the First Order. I think like that conflict is really interesting.
I hate that conflict.
It doesn't get a lot of breathing room though, because you have a third plot in the movie about Poe, about Finn going off with Rose to go and do something that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Well, my main thing with the like mutiny and like not being upset or whatever is like it would have taken literally one sentence for all of that to be resolved.
Yeah.
Like all you had to do was say, Poe, this is the plan. Shut the fuck up. Not.
But another thing
no,
that I'm saying
Poe.
is like I'm not saying that keep that plot as it is. I mean, develop the idea of there being a mutiny within the Resistance, but not specifically about what they actually do.
Yeah.
In the end.
Well, also
you'd have to change the entire way that thing is structured.
Yeah. My main thing too is like, why did purple hair lady stay on the ship when they could have gotten Princess Leia to stay on the ship, which would have made more sense and been more impactful?
Once again, I think it's just because they were planning to use Leia for something meaningful, but then Carrie unfortunately died. Before they could. I think that's the. I feel like if they hadn't had like an idea in mind for, I think this leads into the Rise of Skywalker. I think, but if they. Because I think a big problem with that movie was that I am so sure that had Carrie Fisher not died, that movie would have been a completely different movie.
I disagree entirely, and that's the only reason I disagree is because that movie didn't know what it wanted to be, because there was so much going on. They threw characters in and tossed them out in like
you have to
5 fucking minutes.
You have to think about it this way, though. The people who wrote that movie didn't write it until after The Last Jedi was written. So, like, The Last Jedi came out and was released, and then, only then, like, right around post-release for that movie, was the writing process for Rise of Skywalker actually starting. And in those little window of months before, like right as that writing process was gearing up, that's when Carrie died.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse to have 50 different plot points in a
no,
absolutely
movie. Not. But I think the problem is that they had another movie entirely planned in their heads, and what happened was during the writing process, they wanted to take what elements of that previous movie that they were developing that they liked, and weave them into some new story elements that maybe left Carrie Fisher out of the picture a little more, which is what they eventually did, but they couldn't find an elegant solution to it because, quite frankly, I don't think there is one. Like, it's when you make like the entirety of that final, like the promise of this trilogy to be, concluding the stories of these previously established characters, and one of those lead actors is killed or dies, then you are left with a large empty space that was going to occupy a lot of the story of your movie.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of movie that's lost because Carrie died. A significant amount of it, quite frankly.
I can kind of understand that, but also like
I'm not saying it necessarily excuses their solution, which I think was
just
very bad.
Yeah.
I think it
was definitely a hurdle.
It gave them kind of something that they never figured out how to deal with.
Well, they just used the same shots from Rise of Skywalker, but just changed the background,
which is so bad.
It's so fucking
because you're using archival footage of an actor from a previous movie. You have to basically recreate context for those scenes.
Yeah, but it's also the exact same shot.
It's so bad,
and you're like, why did you do this?
That's why my problem with that movie is that it's just like it just completely lacks a narrative identity.
The movie could have started on, holy shit, Leia's fucking dead.
I think that would have been pretty impactful.
It would have been better. You know what? My other fucking problem with...
I also necessarily feel like it might have been a little more respectful towards Carrie Fisher's memory.
Yeah. That's the other thing.
Not because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
No.
I don't think it was morally wrong what
it
they
just
did,
felt
but
so fucking weird.
It feels worse.
Especially because you have credits
because and it feels worse because you know Carrie Fisher's dead.
Yeah, but you know Carrie Fisher's dead, and you had credits at the end of The Last Jedi that were like, to our dear Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, blank to blank, and you're like, oh my god. Oh.
Yeah, it's
anyway. But yeah, my other like main fucking problem with The Last Jedi, other than all of it, I mean, I knew I was in for a shit show when the movie starts, and it's like, here's Palpatine, and
you're talking about Rise of Skywalker, yeah. You said Last Jedi.
Oh no, well, I mean, Last Jedi ends on the to our Princess Leia, like...
No, yeah.
And, but now I'm back.
You just said, now you're back to Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, okay, I might have fucked up.
The second they brought back Palpatine...
Which is literally the first minute of the movie, I was like, oh, this is gonna fucking suck.
That is a problem.
This is gonna suck.
Because what they've done is now they've undermined the threat that they've been building up since fucking day one of the new trilogy. That in a post-Palpatine world, what did the Empire evolve into?
Yeah, and it's like nothing because Palpatine was pulling the strings the whole time. Whoa!
Exactly, and that completely undermines the threat of the First Order. Yep. It feels so tacked on, and you know what? To me, it reeks the most of is cowardice.
Yeah, they were just like, oh god, we gotta be safe.
Regardless of people's problems with The Last Jedi, I think ultimately it was creatively healthy for the series to try something different, even if not everybody can agree that it worked. It was creatively healthy for the series to work outside of its comfort zone. But when the criticism and the vitriol for that movie became so much, like too much for Disney to bear, they stepped back.
The thing
and
is,
said,
they did something too different, right? Like they went like a little bit too far. Here's the thing: regardless
of whether or not they did something that was too different, the fact that they dared to do something different at all.
Oh yeah, they were like, we gotta go back. Fucking.
It was creatively healthy, and the back step that they take in Rise of Skywalker.
Back step. It's a very small. It was like a
back.
They fell off the cliff backwards.
Yeah, like the
after climbing it.
Backpedaling on the idea of doing something creative with Star Wars, was a mistake, because that's how we ended up with The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
which is just it's a messy movie. One of the things that I hate about the most is that it kind of feels like a half-baked Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. It kind of goes like, you got Force Awakens, pretty good, like 8 out of 10 Star Wars movie, totally enjoyable, totally passable. Problems, sure, whatever, but are they huge? Nah, fuck it, who cares? It's Star Wars. Then you get to Rise of Skywalker, and it's this weird roller coaster of like, I'd still give it like a 7.
Oh, you're talking about Last Jedi.
God, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Episode 8,
Jedi,
yes. Episode 8, where I'm like, okay, this is all right. I have problems with it.
I think it's safe to say that people knew what they were doing. You just didn't necessarily think everything they did with it was what you would have done.
Yeah, like, I have disagreements with how things should have gone, but
there was a creative vision clearly being, used and utilized here, and at the very least, it feels touched by human hands.
Yes, and I wasn't suffering the whole time.
It doesn't feel like a movie that was like bogged down by executive meddling. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then you get to Rise of Skywalker. It feels like they actually
let Rian Johnson have a bit of an auteur moment with that movie.
Yeah,
especially when you compare it to the rest of his filmography, which it feels very creatively similar to. It feels like a Rian Johnson movie.
Yeah, and then you get to Rise of Skywalker, where it was just a miserable trudge the entire time.
Yeah.
Nothing had time to fucking, like, stew.
The movie has no breathing room at all.
I think I talked about it. We were before we recorded the bonus round last week. But I think the moment that I, like, was like, holy shit, they don't know what they want to do with this fucking movie, was when the Chewie gets like arrested, and he gets
Chewie gets taken away by
First Order. Onto a ship, And then
Yeah.
Rey accidentally blows him up with her Palpatine lightning powers so that you get this kind of like, oh, get it? Do you get it?
Yeah.
And the ship blows up and you're like, holy shit, she killed Chewie. And like, it's really like, I was like, oh my God, Chewie, really?
Yeah. And
Really?
not 5 minutes later.
Not 5 minutes. It's literally a cutaway to Chewie on the fucking Imperial ship, and they're like, we got this hairy monkey man.
If you wanted this bait and switch to
but
work,
wait,
give it some fucking breathing room.
it gets even worse because it's a 2-second like shot almost where they're just like, where do we put him? Bring him to the deck, whatever. And then it cuts back to Finn, Rey, and Poe being like, holy shit, Chewie's fucking dead. I can't believe Chewie's dead. And you as the viewer, you're sitting there like,
But
all of this is gone. There's no tension here.
He's not dead.
None of this matters.
The tension that you wanted to build is gone.
And that's the whole movie. It's just things happen like that, and none of it fucking matters. C-3PO loses all his memories, and he's like, I'm gonna lose my memories if I have to read this thing. And, like, he's with 3 people that he's known for, like, 20 minutes, and they all hate him.
And he is literally, like, within the series, like, I get what they're trying to do with that moment. C-3PO is a consistent character throughout the whole of Star Wars.
But he's the punching bag that everyone hates.
But that's the thing. But basically, he never changes. But also, like, he is a beloved character, regardless of characters in universe like him much or not.
Yeah.
But I feel like by this point in the story, all 3 of the original cast members of Star Wars that have any kind of connection to C-3PO
are fucking dead.
Are dead. C-3PO
canonically, not even in real life.
Literally has 0 presence in the other 2 sequel movies.
He's got about a minute between the 2 of them.
Yeah. Now R2 gets a lot of development kind of in Last Jedi. Like, there's a lot of use of him in that movie at the very least.
Okay.
There's a presence. There is a presence.
He is on screen
for 2 seconds as a joke, pretty much.
Yeah, he's like R2D2 is sleepy as hell. He's been napping since Luke ran away, which also doesn't fucking make sense, but whatever.
And he is not interacting with any characters he knows or cares about in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So it's anyway. So what they're trying to do is, like, yeah, I get it. C-3PO is a character who carries the memory of the series on his back because he's present in all these movies. But if the characters around him don't give a shit about him, why does this decision matter?
Yeah, and there's the musical swell when they're like, he's like, I'll do it for the resistance or whatever. And it's like, nobody cares. No one fucking cares.
No, C-3PO don't, because Rey and Finn and Poe don't give a shit about him. But that's the thing.
Rey and Finn and Poe all go, are you sure? And it's like, why do you care?
But they shouldn't, because they don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Because like 5 minutes ago, they were like, shut up, C-3PO. I fucking hate you.
He's the annoying gold homosexual that yelled at them in like 2 scenes in Last Jedi.
Yeah. And then all that gets fucking undercut because they get back to the base and R2-D2's like, good thing I fucking stored this on a fucking hard drive. And you're like, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's really stupid.
And then there's, Poe's romantic interest. The bounty hunter on that one fucking planet that you're...
Oh, Zori, yeah. I love her design. That's a great design.
Yeah, I was like, I can't wait to...
It would sure be great if she did something.
Yeah.
Also, maybe you think you introduced another new character without using the other ones you already have. I think a huge problem with the sequel trilogy in general is that it's bloated with new characters. The trinity of characters
especially
for
the
that
last
series...
one.
Yeah, the trinity of characters for this movie, inarguably, I think, should be Rey, Poe, and Finn.
Yes.
That 3-person dynamic should be the heart that you write this trilogy around. In the way that, Han, Luke, and Leia, that's the original trilogy characters. And in, like, the prequel trilogy, there's, a little bit of a less of a focus on it, but it's really about Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme.
Yeah.
Like, that's the central dynamic of those movies, for better or for worse. Whether or not they did them okay is up to you.
Yeah, because if not, you Spider-Man 3 it and you have like way too much going on and no one remembers half that movie.
The sequel trilogy in general feels bloated because on one hand you have this great trinity of characters, and I think Poe, Finn, and Rey are good characters,
especially in the first one. And then it all falls to shit.
Even after The Last Jedi, I still like all 3 of them. I like their characters as people, and I want to see what
I
they
think
have
what they
going
did
on.
to Finn was a little weird.
But there's so much to unpack with that we as white people are probably not even equipped to talk about. But there is something to be said about the way Finn is portrayed in The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah, and even Rose gets fucking like shafted.
Rose is one of the best characters of The Last Jedi because she actually has an arc that is fulfilled.
And then they're just like, ah.
Yeah. And because
see you later, Rose.
And this is exactly why they did it, because racist people on the internet didn't like Kelly Marie Tran and bullied her off of social media.
Yeah,
they were like, "Oh, we better reduce Rose's presence in this movie," and I'm like, "Well, she kind of was a main character of that last film."
Yes, and probably one of the best parts of that last film.
Yeah, she was really likable. Her performance was emotive and interesting. Her character had a fucking arc. The
racists were mad that the Asian lady stopped the black man from killing himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there you go, right? I think racists are one of the things that have ruined these movies. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Racism has definitely been a huge, component of the really toxic online.
You put a black man in Star Wars, way to make it political.
Do you not know who Lando Calrissian is?
Man, have you watched Star Wars? It's basically all.
Did you even watch the fucking prequels? Do you know how many people of color were in them? A lot. Were a lot of the main characters? No. That's why it was good that when they decided to do a sequel trilogy, to give some characters of color central roles, i.e. Rose, Poe, and Finn.
That weren't Jar Jar Binks.
They are all people of color. Yeah, and they're not step and fetch at fucking minstrel show bullshit characters like Jar Jar Binks.
Yes.
Who is... to this day,
that poor actor
is a confounding stereotype, but also one of the most profoundly sad things about the prequel trilogy, because you can really tell that poor guy just. I mean,
you just see the pre-CG footage of him in the not CG suit, right? And you're just like, oh,
like Ahmed Best, he was trying, man. That guy was trying,
and he had to look like that on set every single day.
Yeah, like he put work into that movie.
Yeah,
he really did. It's just,
well, I mean, how are you supposed to make a character who's written to be unlikable and annoying likable, right? Like, you can't do it.
That's the thing. I feel like the debate is Jar Jar meant to be unlikable or annoying? Because he certainly is. Yes. But is that the intent? Because Lucas, I think, he's the comic relief. He's this, he's the C-3PO of this movie, even though C-3PO is actually in the movie, even if it's briefly. But he's the character who's there to deliver the humor for the children to laugh at. And I'm like, okay, but...
why'd you do it like this?
Counterpoint, this is not the kind of humor that's actually befitting of Star Wars. Star Wars the humor is kind of bitchy and sarcastic.
Yeah, it's not not slapstick.
No, exactly. There is not a lot of fucking like Oliver Hardy kind of, black and white, Buster Keaton type fucking comedy. Like, that's not the comedy of Star Wars. And that's not the comedic, the identity of the comedic elements of Star Wars is not like that. Anyway, we're talking about the prequels now. Let's
get out of here.
Rise of Skywalker is just like it's a tiresome movie. You watch it and you feel exhausted, not just because the pace is a mile a fucking minute and a billion things are happening at once, but also because it just emotionally drains you.
Yeah, it just sucks. I fucking hated it. To resume my thoughts of the trilogy, Force Awakens pretty good. I liked it. The Last Jedi was, depending on what day I'm watching it, either good or bad. And then fucking Rise of Skywalker is just a shit show piece of garbage that I never want to have to see again, and I could never recommend to anyone in good conscience.
I have watched the Rise of Skywalker 2 times. I watched it when I saw it the first time, and I watched it again when it came out on home video.
Yeah.
And my ultimate takeaway is that, and I think I wrote a pretty charitable and nice review of it on Letterboxd just to kind of not feed into the negativity. But my take on that movie ultimately is that, like it or not, it's Star Wars. And
Yeah.
because of the nature of Star Wars as a series, everything that happens in the movies ultimately matters to like the secondary material that I like the most about Star Wars. So like I don't necessarily have to love a Star Wars movie to love Star Wars, which is a nice thing to feel.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Star Wars offers enough for you to like outside of the mainline movies anyway. Which is all my favorite Star Wars shit is not the movies, even though I do really like most of the movies. And I can even find things to like in the movies that I don't necessarily like at all. Like I don't like Rise of Skywalker, but I will be the first to admit when it does something I like it. You know? And of course, as always, you know, it's as much as, you know, you can criticize about, you know, and a lot of shit about the, you know, the movie from a writing standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, still a very pretty movie.
Yeah.
With a lot of very beautiful and flashy special effects and a lot of great shots and beautiful shot composition. Except for in the scenes where they have to fucking edit Carrie Fisher as a ghost into a fucking scene. It looks really awful.
It looked really bad, and it just felt weird.
Yeah, it felt really awkward, and that's the only... And yet, believe it or not, the only time in the movie that any of those completely CG sets felt fucking fake.
Weird.
Really weird. Maybe
it's almost like, don't do
dead
that.
Person in a scene makes everything else look fake by comparison.
Maybe don't do that.
Yeah, maybe write her out of the movie in a respectful manner. But yeah, like there's some stuff in Rise of Skywalker that I like. Like I like how it looks. I think the idea of going back to the crashed landing point of the second Death Star, that's a good idea because it makes for an impressive and interesting scene and set piece. Like
it's
the
a
idea
good
of
set piece. I think it's a dumb idea.
Into the fucking ocean is a nice image. Like I think that there was some manner of artistry went into the visuals of this movie as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I think it's a good set piece, but I think it's a dumb idea because the Death Star like exploded.
Yeah.
Like super. It wasn't like small explosion falling to planet. It was like nuked. Gone.
Another thing that I like about the movie is just like I said, these are ideas so much as not things they executed fully well.
Yeah,
things that like in a Star Wars context, I like this. I think the idea of a Star Wars story that operates a little more like Indiana Jones, is not actually an entirely bad idea. But the thing is, Star Wars has already done it, and it did it even better in two pieces of ancillary Star Wars media, both in Jedi Fallen Order, which is entirely about going to different planets and uncovering secrets of the oldest like force manipulating creatures in the Star Wars universe, like pre-Jedi, even before the Jedi.
Yeah.
And that feels very Indiana Jonesy in the way that you're planet hopping and returning to different places and exploring them in new contexts. But additionally, there's an entire fucking comic called Dr. Aphra set during the period of the original trilogy, starring one of the most popular like post-canon relaunch characters in the series, Dr. Aphra, she is a mercenary archaeologist who basically uses her archaeological skills to basically be mercenary Indiana Jones. Like, what if Indiana Jones sold his services to the highest bidder? And in the Star Wars universe, who is the highest bidder? The fucking Empire. So what if Indiana Jones was working... Well, I mean, he is working for an evil empire because he's an American, and he's putting treasures of different cultures into museums, which is literally just colonialism. But
he's also fighting Nazis, so...
Exactly. So it's like, it's also fun sometimes. But like the whole idea with Dr. Aphra is that those stories feel like Indiana Jones. Like they're adventure stories, pulpy adventure stories with these pulpy set pieces and a character who is like an archaeologist uncovering ancient ruins and relics and using their knowledge as an educated, professional in their field to their advantage to do something underhanded or get themselves into an adventure.
Yeah.
That's like all of this is like, the flavors of Star Wars and Indiana Jones actually mesh very well together.
It's almost like George Lucas doesn't...
Star Wars comes kind of from the same place that Indiana Jones does, which is George Lucas's love of old pulpy like film serials. But whereas Star Wars is war film serials, this is like adventure serials, like that type of shit. It's so it's anyway. This is to say, that idea, good. It's even been executed well in other Star Wars things. The way that it's fucking done in Rise of Skywalker pisses me off. You know what the most contrived piece of writing in the entire movie is? Even more so, and I say this knowing that this almost sounds controversial. More so even than bringing Palpatine fucking back and making Rey his fucking granddaughter. A thing that really boils my blood about the writing of this movie is, you know that scene where they go to the Death Star and they have that dagger?
Oh,
Ben?
God, yeah.
The dagger?
Yeah.
And she pulls the thing out of the dagger and it lines up perfectly with a crashed fucking spaceship.
It's...
Are you fucking kidding me? That's the most contrived bullshit I've ever seen in my life.
It's the dumbest fucking shit.
It's the most contrived thing I have ever seen in my entire
fucking life. That means Palpatine, didn't explode, and then he had to find the crashed spaceship and then, like, craft a dagger.
Exactly.
And you're just like, what the fuck?
Why would you do any of this?
But we haven't even talked about the fleet of fucking Star Destroyers that also doesn't make sense.
Yeah. A huge, you mean to tell
fully
me that
piloted.
Yeah, a huge, fully armed fleet like that.
Oh God, I hate this movie so fucking much.
It's so stupid. I will say one good thing about the climax before we, I guess, move on from this whole subject, because I feel like after this we're gonna mention the thing that everybody hates about this movie, regardless of if they even like the movie or not. But I'm gonna say the idea of like ending a Star Wars movie on a cavalry battle is a good idea, because it brings the series back to the, like I said, these kind of adventure serial roots that it's a part of. But additionally, it also brings it back to that war serial roots, like I mentioned previously, where it's people with the lowest level of technology heroically fighting against a force that is just overpowering them with resources and money. So the idea of allowing like the characters to have a really low-tech solution to a high-tech problem, shutting down these command beacons that activate the fleet, right? That's what they're doing in the last stage of the movie when Rey is fighting Palpatine, right?
Yeah.
The idea of doing that in a super low-tech way, that's really cool. That's a cool idea. The idea of it being a ground cavalry battle, basically, where you're navigating this massive space on effectively horseback is what they're doing.
But aren't they in space? I don't know. I didn't.
No, they're on the surface of another planet.
Oh yeah, the spooky.
Yeah, they're on the surface of
the atmosphere planet.
Cloud Thunder planet. Cloud Cuckoo Land. But
I don't know. I hated that too. I thought it was dumb.
But I think the idea of a cavalry battle in Star Wars is cool. I actually think even one of my favorite parts of the Episode 1, and this is controversial actually, is that battle between the droid army and like the Gungan United Army. With the exception of all the shit with Binks being a stupid fucking asshole throughout the whole thing. That's actually a pretty good idea for a fight. Once again, I like the idea of people fighting with basically nothing but fucking sticks and, horses or whatever the fuck they had against an army with tanks and mobilized like artillery weapons and stuff like that. That imagery is good. This is good stuff that works if well executed. The problem with Star Wars, though, it often seems to be the execution.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think my main problem with that cavalry thing is like they landed on this planet and were there for like a couple of hours.
Once again, I'm not saying that makes any
No, I know.
sense.
I'm looking at it as a whole.
I like that
right?
idea. That's a cool idea. I think
I think the context around that idea is stupid. So it just makes me hate the idea. It's like the rhinos in fucking Black Panther.
One thing
where you're just like, why are you doing this?
What it makes me think of is, once again, in the Star Wars Clone Wars series that Genndy Tartakovsky did, he had effectively an entire medieval battle sequence in one of those shorts that was the Jedi on speeder bikes with lances and clones with lances jousting against like droids with lances.
Yeah.
And that was really fucking cool. The idea of a cavalry battle in the context of Star Wars feels really fitting to this setting that's both very low tech and high tech at the same time,
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's cool to see them trying that idea out in the movies. It's not cool to see them not succeed,
Yeah.
But it's cool to see that they see that idea is inherently a good one.
Yeah,
and want to try
I can
it
see
even
where
if
you're
they
coming
fail.
from with this.
That's what I mean. Like, it's good that they're willing to kind of explore these ideas.
I just wish they would do it good.
I wish they would actually succeed because I've seen other people in this series succeed at doing the same thing. And so them doing it in live action, the prospect is great. But all of this is to say, the end of the movie, I think, is the part that makes everybody mad.
It's such a fucking piece of shit. Holy fucking Christ!
The last 30 minutes of Rise of Skywalker is brain poison.
I hate Kevin Smith for the rest of my life because he got to go on set or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, the end of Rise of Skywalker is gonna blow your mind." And he said this on Twitter.
It did blow.
God, I'm still mad at Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, if you're listening to this, fuck you. You fucking asshole.
I like Kevin Smith, and I'm a mark for his movies, but I think that he's a little overly reverent.
He's a fucking shill.
Likes. He is a bit of a shill. Although, to be honest, if I had the opportunity to visit the set of a Star Wars movie and had a lot of fun on that set, but didn't like narratively what they were doing, I don't know if I'd actually voice my opinion.
Yeah, you could just shut up. I would be tweeting about it on set and be like, "Oh man, you guys, this shit sucks. Don't go see this." And then I'd never get invited to another Disney thing ever, which is fine.
I feel like Kevin Smith's a bit of a mark for the things he likes. Which is, I mean, fine, whatever. That's his MO. I won't. I still like the shit that he makes.
I won't forgive him.
Call me a dumb idiot. Although you also should probably never take anything Kevin Smith says on the internet seriously.
Yeah.
It's another thing I should think people would know by now. Is just if Kevin Smith says something on the internet, it's probably because he's Kevin Smith.
Yeah. It's a business move.
He was the first guy putting Star Wars references in his movies. We'll give him that. But
at what cost?
At what cost? What did he bring upon us afterwards? Yeah, all of this is to say though that everything in that last 30 minutes is pain. Just pain. That scene sucks.
Everything
Palpatine's
sucks.
Fucking stupid.
Everything fucking sucks.
That's not to say Star Wars is Star Wars is always stupid, but what it rarely ever is boring, and this is what.
Yeah. Cause it's just space wizards,
which is dumb.
Right, and you're like, this is dumb. This is dumb
for children. It's dumb fantasy.
But it's not bad dumb. It's fun dumb. Whereas like the ending of fucking Rise of Skywalker is just a fucking. It's like you had a migraine and someone is playing the cymbals while shining a fucking strobe light into your eyeballs.
I gotta say, when Kylo Ren kissed Rey,
everyone, like me and my partner, recoiled on the couch and just went, "Ah!"
I can tell you, as somebody who saw the movie in the theater, that was
a unanimous reaction.
I have never heard a more collective outcry of confusion and revulsion in a theater.
Yeah, just what the fuck?
That wasn't like a horror movie or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
In like a Hollywood blockbuster playing it safe for the audience.
Because it is scare. It's the worst jump scare I've seen ever.
I have never seen an audience react more negatively to anything.
Also, can we agree that the wrong character fucking died?
I'll be honest, I don't think that either of them should have died.
Well, I mean, yes, but if one of them had to die, I would have rather it been Rey. Because, I don't know, Kylo Ren just seemed more interesting. You could have had a more interesting story in the next trilogy.
I feel like the reason they have to kill off Kylo Ren, and this is, even I don't necessarily...
because Adam Driver wants nothing to do with this anymore.
Not even. Actually, I'm pretty sure he was one of the few people who actually got something to chew on with his character.
Well, yeah, it's because he got actual character development that stayed consistent.
To say, I think the reason they did it is because they saw the think pieces popping up already about, like, well, Kylo Ren is a mass murderer who literally led a fascist regime. Why did he get to live?
Yeah, but it's Star Wars.
But exactly. To which my argument is, it's fucking Star Wars. Darth Vader, Darth Vader got to live and then died immediately after. But like, they could have given him a little more if he had to die than what they gave him, which was he give her a kiss and then
for no reason. For no reason. He was just like, I don't want to die a virgin. Mwah. And you're like,
this
what?
Is how you get girls pregnant, right?
What the fuck is this?
Anyway, it's that whole ending deflates.
Fuck you, J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams is. I don't even think he's necessarily the problem with that movie.
No.
Because evidently he can make a good Star Wars.
It feels like Disney went around to too many like Tumblr fanfics, and they're like, "Oh, people really want to see Rey and fucking Kylo Ren kiss."
The three things Disney did with this movie to kind of ruin it effectively was listen too much to the wrong critics, fear too much for the movie, and also, rely too much upon the idea of having Carrie Fisher there to write a narrative, to conclude the trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you should have thought about that, and you should always take that shit into account.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's unprecedented because, people like Chadwick Boseman dying out of nowhere, that's a shock. That's a shock because they're young. Carrie Fisher was not young, but she was also, she wasn't very old, I should say.
No,
she was also not young.
She was party rocking.
She was also not young. And, I think when you're working with older actors, you should plan for that actor to, in some scenario, maybe not be there to fulfill the role.
Yeah.
It's just kind of... Anyway, all of this is to say that sucks. So overall, I think you're burnt out on Star Wars now, right?
Yeah, I tried. We started 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, and I was like, hey, it's still too fresh. I don't care. Like, it seems fine, and it seems good. Yeah. It seems totally perfect.
I think in terms of what you personally like about Star Wars, you'll like it.
It's probably what I like, but I was like, it's still too fresh. We're going to watch Twin Peaks. So we started doing that, but I'll talk about that next week because we have one more episode in season 1.
There we go.
It was a funny situation where I was like, how many episodes in season 1? 8. Cool, that's all right. How many episodes in season 22? Holy shit.
Well, you're not even ready for season 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the 2 movies in between that.
Yep. There's quite a bit there. But yeah, to conclude our Star Wars discussion, I will tell people,
don't do it.
If you like Star Wars and you want to watch something that's Star Wars and also good, you can watch The Mandalorian. However, you can also watch Star Wars Rebels, which in my opinion is the best Star Wars anything that has been made since the original trilogy. Because it directly leads into the original trilogy whilst acting as a sequel to Clone Wars, and I do like Clone Wars as well. But it's like a direct prequel to the events leading into the original trilogy that also has the aesthetic of the original concept art, the Ralph McQuarrie concept art for those movies.
Yeah.
That were so crucial to establishing Star Wars' aesthetic and visual identity. And that mixed in with kind of the mystical fantasy storytelling that you like, the stuff that people like from the prequels that didn't necessarily, wasn't necessarily used to its full extent.
Yeah.
Like it dives into the lore in a meaningful way, and it makes all that stuff feel cool and interesting. So anyway, Rebels is a good show. It's 4 seasons, so it's not that long. And the animation is nice. The voice acting is great. There's a lot of great actors in it, actually. They even get a couple of actors from the movies to reprise their roles. So Billy D. Williams is in it as Lando, which is cool.
Oh, nice.
And his episodes are really funny. He's really hamming it up in that. It's interesting.
Of course, he has
play
to like
him playing.
He hammed it up in fucking Rise of Skywalker.
Oh yeah, it was nice seeing him for 2 seconds in that movie. Really wish they had spent more time with him. But that's
he was like, I'm tired. No,
I'm not gonna come out on this adventure. Then why do you show me him? Why do you tease him? When you're not gonna do shit with him.
It's so that you could clap and get excited for 2 seconds and then be disappointed.
That was some BOWSHIET bow shit. Bow shit. But I will say that there's some great there's some great voice actors in that. There's James Hong plays a really disgusting kind of space crime lord called As Morrigan, and it's a really funny role for him because he rarely plays crime bosses in stuff. Like, I think he's most famous probably for being David Lo Pan in Big Trouble from Little China.
Mm-hmm.
But in that movie, he's playing kind of like a haha evil Fu Manchu, mustache twirling, like Yellow Peril villain.
Yeah.
And in this, he's just playing like a disgusting, like, sex trade gangster in this TV show for children, might I add.
Nice.
And he is very funny in it. And the way that they often he recurs throughout the series, and they outsmart him in a bunch of different ways. And his rage scenes where he realizes he's been had are so fucking funny, and he is really funny in that role. Forrest Whitaker from Rogue One, who played Saw Gerrera, also comes back in an episode to play the same character. He's really good in that two-parter that they do. They do kind of a riff on Alien with him in that episode. It's really, really good. Really like a riff on Alien.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. So they do a lot of fun stuff with the animated Star Wars shows. So because
I feel like those have more leeway, right? Like they're like,
they do, and they can do genre pastiche that the movies don't do.
Yeah.
Like there's a great episode of the Clone Wars series about basically just a heist. Like, it's just a good heist story, and it kind of feels similar to something like Ocean's 11 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing it with, like, it's a bunch of different bounty hunters coming together to pull off a really difficult heist, and everybody's at each other's throats, but they have to work together. And I'm like, oh, I like that. That's a thing that, like, works so well in the context of Star Wars, but the live action movies can't do because it's not a story you can really pan out for a full Star Wars movie, you know?
Yeah.
Except for Rogue One, which they kind of do, and it kind of works. But that's besides the point. This was before Rogue One, so it was unique when it came out. And alternatively, like, just a bunch of really great characters in those series that are pretty much original to them, like Ahsoka in Clone Wars, who is in The Mandalorian now and is getting her own TV show. And the entire cast of Rebels, who, those are great characters. Like, from moment one you meet them, they're great. Steve Bloom is in that show all over the place, but he also voices one of the lead characters, Zeb. And Zeb is maybe one of my favorite Star Wars characters now. And he has a really cool kind of relationship with the antagonist of the first couple of seasons, Agent Callus, who is like a really good reluctant character, reluctant villain character, who ends up getting a lot of development and eventually a redemption arc. And it's very well executed, and part of it is his begrudging respect and eventual friendship with Zeb, which is really, really cool. Like, he goes from a total mark for the Empire into a dude who deserts them out of both guilt and remorse over what he's done as a part of the Empire, and also out of respect for another person who basically made him reevaluate his motives and his his actions. And it's a really well executed redemption arc, and it's not Prince Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender levels of, like, good, because it's definitely seeded from season 1 and really feels like it comes full circle by the final episode. So yeah, Star Wars TV shows, there's plenty of those. Watch those if you want a taste of the potential of Star Wars to be good. Because that's good. But if you feel like the wound is too open from the sequel trilogy, give it time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I'll get through Twin Peaks and then I'll hit it. And it also gives me a chance to, like, sit back and see if Disney ruins The Mandalorian too.
Well, so far they've done a pretty good job. I liked what the season 2 finale is. Some people don't like it, and some people really do like it.
Yeah,
I'm firmly in the camp of having enjoyed it.
That's what scares me, though. It's getting popular, and now people are like, it's getting kind of divisive. I'm like, oh, season 3 is going to be a bad one.
I think the people who find it divisive are mostly people who, I don't know, just kind of don't want to have fun with the show.
Okay.
Like, because there's a big portion of the internet that I would like to say is just, like, a little too overly negative on it. Like, because The Rise of Skywalker was such a disappointment that it's kind of soured Star Wars for them, and it colors their perception of stuff that's just kind of leagues better than it in every way, just
Yeah.
by a guilt by association with that other movie, by nature of being in the same series. But Star Wars is Star Wars. It's never gonna fucking go away, and there's always gonna be more of it, and not all of it's gonna be good, but not all of it's gonna be shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's inevitably with something this massive, there's always gonna be parts of it that are good. I mean, I've had the pleasure of being somebody who works at a bookstore and is an avid reader to read a lot of the novels that they've been publishing in the last couple of years. And those don't necessarily make up for how disappointing the movies are. Especially for people who are not interested in reading, which is totally fine. Reading is not for everybody anyway. But as somebody who, likes to read a good novel, they have written some. So, and they put good, popular authors on them who kind of know what they're doing. Like, they don't just give them to people who are shills for, Del Rey Publishing or Disney Publishing, whoever, but to, authors who have expansive, bibliographies in their own right and who write really interesting fiction. And they get to do, their take on Star Wars, like giving an author who writes primarily really detail-oriented, realistic war fiction that's like very focused on aviation in particular, and having them write a book about X-Wing pilots, because their strengths is obviously in kind of portraying aerial combat from a detail-oriented war standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's a good idea. And guess what? It worked out because that book was good. So it's stuff like that I'm talking about, where it's like, it's never going to be all great. But the stuff of it that's good is going to be good. And the stuff of it that's bad, it's going to be bad. But, what can you do about that? What are you going to do? It's Star Wars. It's still the biggest thing in the fucking world, and it's going to go on forever, whether we want it or not. So there you go. But, I guess we can move into some last-minute news.
Yeah, if we can plow through this, I think I've got a migraine, starting up.
Okay. I didn't really have much to talk about apart from Cyberpunk news.
Cyberpunk news?
Basically, everything about what has happened has made its way into a Jason Schreier article.
Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah, well.
You know how Schreier is writing these really good exposés. So if anybody is interested in reading a comprehensive and really well organized account of the Cyberpunk 2077 story from beginning to end, I recommend you go to Bloomberg and you read Jason Schreier's article on CD Projekt Red and just the fucking disaster piece that is this game. Because it's a really fascinating story, and because I'm a billion leagues removed from it, because I never thought it was going to be good, it both feels incredibly vindicating and incredibly interesting from an intellectual standpoint.
How you feel about Cyberpunk is how I felt about Game of Thrones.
There you go. To see the turn and the loss of cultural goodwill in such a quick succession of moments,
almost immediate,
from literally one of the most beloved and celebrated studios in contemporary video games
to the most vilified.
To the most vilified. More
all
so
good
even,
faith is gone. Anything the studio is gonna make is gonna have to be free.
I think CD Projekt Red really fucked up here, and
they shot themselves in the throat.
To have a controversy that is in every possible way worse than the Fallout 76 shit
is so fucked up.
It's firstly complete fucking, what do you call an anti-miracle? Because this is what this is. Something that almost seems like it's so many magnitudes of
god
bad.
Plight.
It seems like it's an act of God.
Yeah,
this is
a god plight.
It feels like a natural disaster. Really.
But it's really not. It's three people in marketing being it's fine.
Exactly.
And while the QA team screams,
the results of this feel like they're the magnitude of a natural disaster, when the reality is it's so small potatoes.
It's four rich people that were ship it.
You could, the exact things that went wrong with this game are, it's literally an indictment of the awful capitalistic manufacturing side of game development.
Yeah.
That's what ruined this game. And ironically, a game that's meant to be openly critical of concepts like capitalism.
I mean, I think that's the hardest thing too, like hitting Cyberpunk on the head is just like, wow, this is the most ironic thing to have. Because like Fallout 76 was just kind of a shit show, and it was like, yeah, it's a Bethesda game. And it was almost to be expected with Bethesda's history of disappointing returns. But like it kind of got wild. But like this was just like, oh wow, like you committed too hard to the subject matter.
Yeah.
To where you became it, like
you became emblematic of the culture that the game that you were making was promised to be critical of. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if you go and read Schreier's article on that, Jason Schreier obviously does a lot of really good and hard work for games journalism in general. So I wholeheartedly support what he does, because he's always willing to break down these fucking barriers with these companies and get into the nitty gritty of what makes the games industry, especially the AAA games industry, such a toxic and awful fucking place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the thirst around Lady Dimitrescu.
Oh god, big mommy milkers, big tall 8-foot lady mommy milkers.
I don't know what Capcom were necessarily intending with this character. I don't know if they even thought that what they were doing was making a character that the entire internet would thirst
the
about
art
in 2
designer.
seconds.
I think the art designer knew, and he was like, "God, I hope Capcom doesn't catch on. I hope no one makes me change anything."
Because Lady Dimitrescu is like every fetish rolled into one character.
Yeah, it's almost to the level of Bowsette.
She is a big, tall, curvy lady with huge mommy milker, big booby titties.
Big booby anime milker boobies.
Big milky boobies, as I think somebody called her.
Yeah.
Just big milky boobies.
Oh god, Pat in the podcast on Castle Super Beast kept calling it Milkies, and I was like,
big Milkies.
Big Milkies. And I was like, stop it. Yeah. It's wrong.
And all I have to say about this is the whole internet is right. Lady Dimitrescu is really fucking hot.
Yeah. I was like, I remember the trailer dropped and I was like, oh my god, it's my new wife. I love her. Yeah. This is great. This is made specifically for me. And then the fan art started coming and I was like, yes, good, my children.
Good to know it's made specifically for everyone.
Yeah, good, my children, good. Thank you for the hard work. And then the cosplay started happening and I was like, it's that fucking, the picture of Vince McMahon where he's just like,
oh god.
And you're like, yep.
Oh yeah. Ooh. I mean, I like this direction that they're taking Village in, because it seems
I was skeptical until Lady D.
That's the thing. It seems creatively interesting for the series to go fully gothic horror.
Yeah.
Because it's an aesthetic I think they have been playing around with for a while, especially in 4. But now they're just kind of fully leaning into it, where they're just like, what if we just went to Eastern Europe and fought werewolves and vampires? And I'm like, fuck yeah. And then, the addition of, what if the vampire was sexy? And I'm like, sexy in what way? Big lady sexy. Oh, sexy in the way I like.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think that's just, it's super funny to see, like, I feel like Capcom is marketing this character not entirely as sexy, and they should just fully lean into it.
I don't know. I think they kind of know what they're doing.
This is the thing.
The promo art has all been like
the promo art, sure, but
cropped.
you see her in the trailer, and I'm like, it almost feels like they're trying to make this seem scary by the way they're framing her.
No, I don't think they're doing it.
But it just seems hot to me.
I mean, even the like daughters, right? The blonde vampires.
Oh, well, yeah.
You're just like, ugh.
Her vampire brood of sexy
daughters. And I'm just like, man, I'm supposed to run from these? Like...
No, they're just...
Why?
These characters are all just sexy. And
on top of it, like, the little vampire, like, people are like... Man blood. I haven't had man blood in a while, and you're like, yeah, let's go.
What about man milk? But yeah, all of this is to say, Village looks like it's gearing up to be something very interesting.
It's gonna be horny.
It's gonna be horny. I know that the demo just dropped.
There's not much
playing
there.
around with that.
There's not much.
Well,
there.
I heard it's pretty much a playable teaser type deal.
I mean, it's a showcase more than anything. Like nothing happens in that fucking.
It is PT. It is PT. But for a game that we actually know
PT
about.
had more. PT had
Damn,
more.
really? Shit.
Yeah,
So it's
like there's
it is
legit
a fluff
nothing there.
Demo then. Damn.
Yeah,
but it's coming out in April, which is really soon. So,
no, it's coming out in May.
Oh, May. Sorry, not April. May.
Guilty Gear Strive is coming out in April, however, and they had a showcase, and that was pretty good.
They also do have a lot of big Milkies in that game.
Big mommy Milkies.
Yeah, lots of big sexy mommies.
No 9-foot tall ladies though, unfortunately.
Oh well. We can't all be perfect.
I don't know if you saw the mock-up of someone doing Lady D in Marvel vs. Capcom. I was just like, oh yes.
How much taller was she than everybody else?
It was like a super. It was a hyper combo finish screen, so like, it wasn't very clear. I'll send it to you after, but like, you're just like, yes, this will revive Marvel vs. Capcom.
I feel like if they ever did a new MVC, although
she's got to be in there.
Doubt it. She would be a great character to.
She can replace Nemesis, no problem.
Yeah.
No one would be mad.
No. No. Exactly. But I think Village is going to be an interesting turn for the series. I don't really have much else news-wise to talk about. You said you're starting to feel a migraine coming on, so
yeah.
I feel like we can cut it off here for this week. But I think we had a couple good discussions this one.
Yeah, mostly Star Wars, but
yeah, I mean, hey, it's what we promised. It's what we promised the people. So they got what they were asking for, or what we promised that they would want to listen to. So that's all to say. I've been Ryan. You can find me all over social media at Nouveau Art Punk on everything. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I have a letterbox where I talk about the movies that I watched. I've watched a lot of movies recently, so if you want to read up on what I have to say about them, you can do it there. Sometimes they're long reviews and sometimes they're rather short. I wrote a little bit about WandaVision, which I think I'll talk about once the series is over. But all of that is to say, like, if you want to hear my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of that show, you can read that on Letterboxd. Otherwise, I'm pretty much just on Twitter talking about Nobuo Uematsu music and sharing political memes. That's what I do, and that's what I'm best at. What about you, Ben? Where can people find you? What do you do on the internet?
I post videos on YouTube. I stream sometimes, I promise. Probably within the next 2 weeks I'll get back to regular streaming schedule, but it's been a minute, so there's not much to look out for there. I will be posting a couple YouTube videos, though, because I've been playing fighting games with friends, recording the matches, and I'm working on a few funny videos for that. Other than that, I have a very stupid video project that I'm working on that is kind of making headway in terms of like script completion, so that's cool.
Nice.
It's very dumb. I'm very excited. What else? I don't remember. I don't think there's much.
I mean, you can follow.
Yeah,
I'm
Scratch Me Silly literally everywhere. Just
yeah. Catch his streams. What days do you stream usually?
I'll let you know when I get back to it, because right now it's like, yeah, I'm just kind of like, I'm swamped with a bunch of shit, so I'm like, I'm not even thinking about that right now. But within like 2 weeks, I should be okay to like get back to like a actual thing.
Well, there you go. Follow up with Ben on Twitch. If you want to see when he's streaming, just look him up on Twitter and see what days he's on. He'll usually post an announcement anyway, won't you?
Yeah.
But
usually do, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I guess we'll see you next week, probably with a new bonus round. Yeah. But until then, keep it real. Stay cool, stay safe from COVID, because that's still happening. You wouldn't know it with all the shit that's been going on recently. It almost feels like that's on the back burner, but it's not. COVID is still very real.
Unfortunately.
So keep yourself safe. Wear your damn masks. Don't go be stupid. Don't go out. Just, stay inside, quarantine yourself, and only do what you got to do to get out there and make your living. Yeah. But take it easy, and thank you very much for listening.
A buddy of mine saw Kylo Ren take his shirt off in the shower, and he said that Kylo Ren had an 8-pack. That Kylo Ren was shredded.
What? Your friend's a liar, man. Kylo Ren is a punk bitch. That guy looks like he weighs 30 pounds soaking wet underneath that little black dress.